Science fiction is supposed to be about the future. Technology, space travel, AI, the cold, hard march of progress. And yet, instead of leaving old gods behind, sci-fi keeps dragging them along for the ride. No matter how advanced we get, we can't seem to shake our obsession with divinity. Why? Because for all our scientific advancements, we're still the same confused, fragile creatures staring up at the cosmos, desperate for answers. I think this says a lot about us. We like to believe that the more we learn, the less we'll need faith, but history shows the opposite. Every time we push the limits of knowledge, new theological and existential dilemmas arise. We may be launching satellites and programming AI, but deep down, we're still haunted by the same questions ancient civilizations asked while gazing at the stars. Why are we here? Is there a higher power? What does it all mean? Sci-fi isn't just about spaceships and laser guns, it's a playground for philosophy, and time again it keeps coming back to divinity, faith and the unknown. Whether it's AI gods, cosmic indifference, or humans literally becoming deities, sci-fi reflects our never-ending need to make sense of the universe. One of the things I love about sci-fi is how it challenges religious belief by throwing it headfirst into the cold, hard reality of the universe. Take Arthur C. Clarke's The Star. A Jesuit astrophysicist makes a horrifying discovery. The bright star of Bethlehem that signalled Christ's birth was actually a supernova that wiped out an entire alien civilization. That's a gut punch. If you're religious, how do you reconcile something like that? I think this story and others like it, like The Sparrow by Mary Adoria Russell for example, hit hard because they force us to confront an uncomfortable possibility. What if the universe doesn't care about us? We like to think that there's a plan, that suffering has meaning, but sci-fi often asks, what if it doesn't? What if God isn't benevolent? Or worse, what if he's just not there? Sci-fi doesn't just challenge faith, it also questions what happens when we try to take divine matters into our own hands. If the universe is indifferent, and if there's no guiding force shaping our fate, does that mean we should step up and play God ourselves? That's where another classic sci-fi theme emerges, humanity's relentless drive to seize control of creation, often with disastrous results. Take The Lathe of Heaven by Ursula Le Guin. Here we have a guy whose dreams literally change reality, and of course some scientist thinks, hey, let's just use this for good. But every time he tries to, quote, fix the world, it just gets worse. It's a perfect metaphor for how humans always think they know best. But do we? I think this book argues that we're not actually equipped to handle godlike power, even if we think we're using it for good. Then there's Golem 14 by Stanisław Lem, where a hyper-intelligent AI outgrows human understanding and starts dropping god-tier philosophical truths. It's fascinating because it flips the script. What if we're not the gods of AI, but just stepping stones on the way to something far beyond us? That's the kind of existential dread that keeps me up at night. And then when you look at things like I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, possibly one of the most terrifying short stories ever written, an AI with ultimate power, doesn't save humanity, it tortures it. Because why not? When you have absolute control and no compass, what is stopping you? That's what makes sci-fi's obsession with AI gods so chilling. It forces us to ask, if we create gods, will they have our flaws? Or will there be something much, much worse? At least for us, anyway. Some sci-fi stories take a different approach, asking if gods are really just a matter of perception. If someone is powerful enough, do they just become a god by default? I think Lord of Light by Roger Zelazny is one of the coolest examples of this. In a far future world, a group of technologically advanced humans have set themselves up as literal Hindu gods, ruling over the people. But what happens when one of them rebels and says, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this? It's such a smart take on power, divinity, and the idea that maybe gods aren't born, they're made. Then you've got the God Emperor of Dune, where Leto 2 is literally a human-worm hybrid who rules as an immortal god. He sees the future, controls humanity's fate, and yet, is he even a god? Or just a really powerful guy who's trapped in his own grand vision? That's what makes Herbert's work so compelling. He blurs the line between religion, politics, and power until they're completely indistinguishable. Let's look at Battlestar Galactica, for example. The tension here between faith and ambiguity is a larger question that sci-fi often wrestles with. If there's a divine force, what form does it actually take? Is it a personal intervening god who guides events, or is it something far more abstract, something woven into the fabric of existence itself? This is where sci-fi takes an unsettling turn. What if God isn't a sentient being at all, but rather the cold, impersonal laws of the universe? What if the grand design isn't being dictated by an entity, but is simply unfolding as an inevitable sequence of events, like a machine running a program? Arthur C. Clarke's The 9 Billion Names of God plays with this idea brilliantly. A group of monks convinced that the purpose of existence is to list all of God's names enlists a group of skeptical computer engineers to speed up the process. The monks believe that once they complete their task, the universe will end, not in fire or destruction, but simply as a finished program no longer necessary. The engineers dismiss the idea as superstition, but in the story's chilling final moment, they look up at the night sky and see the stars slowly winking out. Clarke never explicitly confirms whether the monks were right, but the implication is terrifying. What if the universe really is just an elaborate computation, and once it fulfills its function, it simply shuts down? What if our existence isn't random but premeditated, just another piece of code in a cosmic machine? H.P. Lovecraft took this existential horror even further. In his mythos, there are gods, but they are utterly indifferent to humanity. Cthulhu and his kin exist beyond human comprehension, vast entities that neither love nor hate us. The idea that there might be a god is unsettling enough, but the possibility that it sees us as insignificant or doesn't see us at all is even worse. Sci-fi forces us to consider, if there is a god, is it one we would even recognise, let alone understand? At the end of the day, I think sci-fi keeps coming back to God because we can't help but ask these questions. Even in a genre that's all about the future, we're still haunted by ancient concerns. We want to know if we're alone. Are we special or just another accident in the universe? Sci-fi constantly plays with this idea, whether through first contact stories, sentient AI, or cosmic horror. The possibility that we might not be alone is exhilarating and terrifying, because there's something out there greater than us. And is it godlike, or something far worse? We're afraid of power. If we create gods, whether AI, aliens, or something else, what happens if we can't control them? Sci-fi warns us that power, even in the hands of something supposedly divine, often leads to suffering. The very act of creating something greater than ourselves forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about responsibility and hubris. We crave meaning. Whether through faith or science, we're always trying to figure out if there's a bigger picture. Even the bleakest sci-fi often acknowledges this human need, even if it offers no comforting answers. Some stories suggest we'll eventually create God ourselves, like The Last Question by Asimov, while others imply that the universe has always been indifferent. Sci-fi doesn't answer these questions for us, but it forces us to think about them, and that's what makes it such a powerful genre. Whether God is real, an AI, or just a metaphor for our need to understand the unknown, sci-fi reminds us that the search for meaning never really ends, and maybe, just maybe, that's the point. The questions themselves are what make us human. Thanks so much for watching. If you're craving an extraordinary journey through realms unexplored, consider delving into universes directly out of my brain by checking out my sci-fi novels Black Milk and Delphine Descends. You can find more details in the description. Thanks for your support.